So this is the app we'll be building. It's just a simple donation application, and all you need is just two fields right here. And we could have also made it like a single field if we wanted to. All we needed to do was to just make sure that this particular field where it says enter your phone number is basically a phone number that you have within that of the MTN wallet where you have some money in it. Okay, so it has to be a phone number that you have registered with that of the MTN MOMO, which is a mobile money API. You must have some money within that particular place, serves as your wallet address or your wallet ID. You're going to have to enter it right here, and after you enter that, you enter the amount that you want to donate to this particular organization. Okay, that's just basically how that works. You just basically need to enter a phone number that you have, an MTN phone number that exists within MTN MOMO wallet, and then you go ahead and enter the amount you want to donate. So without wasting much time, I want us to do that right now, and I want to change this to this particular number right here, and this is basically a test number from MTN MOMO. Okay, if you switch to live mode, you are going to make use of your own phone number, or whatever whomsoever that is actually buying from you will have to enter his or her phone number right here, and that has to be a phone number that he has within that of the MTN MOMO, and he has some money in it. So after that, he needs to just enter the amount that he wants to donate. Let's say we want to donate something like 10 euros. Okay, and notice that I'm using euro right here, and the reason for that is because we're still on a test environment. And if you switch to live mode, you can change this to your own currency. Right now I'm in Nigeria. Once I switch to live mode, I'm going to change this to naira. Okay, but if you are on a test mode, what actually works in the test mode is that of the euro. Okay, so you have to keep on using euro in the test environment. Once you switch to live, you're going to change that to your own currency. Okay, so what I will you after entering all these things, the next thing you need to do is to go ahead and click on donate, and then it's going to actually check and then validate that. Okay, so and then the message says here that is a push notification sent to your phone, complete the payment now. So what happens is that at this particular point, MTN is actually going to push a message to your phone, a push notification, not really a message to your phone, where you just need to validate this particular payment. Okay, so all you need to do is once you get that response on your phone, you need to validate that, complete the payment, and then you come back and click on I have completed the payment. Okay, and if you do that and then you click on this I have completed the payment, it's going to basically check, validate that, and then take you to the thank you page, which it says right here your donation was successful, we appreciate your support. Okay, so this is just like a mock of how the application is actually going to work, guys. But right now I'm actually on a test mode, guys. So I don't have a way to actually show you my phone right now, and the reason for that is because I have not actually switched to live mode, and then I don't have all the credentials that MTN actually needs me to have to be able to test this in a real life. Okay, so I will not be able to switch to live mode throughout this video. Okay, but however, had it been or had any errors, what happens is that it's going to take you to this particular page, which I'm going to show you right now. It's going to just say oops, and it says that something went wrong with your donation, please try again later. Okay, so that's just basically how that is actually going to work, and I hope that you guys are actually going to learn something from this. And let's get started without wasting much time. All right, so we'll be working on the sandbox environment as of this particular time, but then we need to just go to momodeveloper.mtn.com to create an account with them. And to do that, I'm going to just click on sign up, and then I need to just basically fill out this form right here, which automatically have this information right here, but I want to change that up. So let's say that this is actually going to be akinbenki@gmail.com, and you can go ahead and enter a password right here. And let's go ahead and confirm our password, and our first name should be right there, then our last name right there. And the next thing we need to do is to make sure that we're able to enter this code correctly right here. So another thing, that's QKKLN right there. And I want to click on sign up, and it seems like that's was actually scroll to the tab, and it says by creating a free account you can access our API and use sample data to try our APIs in sandbox environment. I think that account has been created. So the next thing we need to do right now is to go ahead, we need to sign in. But before we do that, let's go to our email to find out whether we really got that or not. So I'm going to go to Gmail. All right, so I'm logged on to my email right now. This is Akin Benki, and I want to open up that email because this is the email right here, and I'm going to click on it. All right, so this is the message they've sent to us, and here is the instruction content therein. I think that what we just basically need to do is to click on this to complete the registration, or to kind of confirm our email. So that is actually going to open up in a new tab, and with that it means that our email has been confirmed, so we can now go and log in. So I'm going to enter the email we use, which is Akin Benki, and let's go ahead and enter the password, and let's click on login right there. Scroll down a little bit and click sign in. And if you take a look at that very well, you see that I'm actually logged into the account right here. I'm really logged into the account. And what I need to do right now is really very simple. To get started, I need to go to products. So I want to click on products right here. And it's going to take me to this page. And if I scroll down, what I basically need to do is to subscribe to one of these products that we have in here. Okay, so I want to subscribe. The first one I want to subscribe to is this particular one that says collections. Enable remote collections of bills, fees, and taxes. So I'm going to click on that, and that page is opened. So if we scroll down right here, and I think I need to just basically agree to the terms, and let me just copy this. And if I copy that and paste that right here, and I'm going to just go ahead and click on subscribe. And that means that I'm actually subscribed to that particular product right now. Okay, so look, these are the credentials that I need. Right here, you can see my primary key right here and that of my secondary key. So this simply means that I'm subscribed to this particular package right now. Now, the next thing that we want to do right now is to basically go and create something like, so let's go ahead and then create something like an API user. And to create an API user is really very simple. Let's just go to API sandbox first of all, which is right here. It seems like, you know what? Let's go to documentation. And once that opens up, let's check get started. And of course, we've really completed these steps. So the first step was to sign up for an account, and after that we subscribed to a product, which is collection, that we subscribe to this particular one. And then after that, what we need to do now, what are the managing our subscription. So the fourth step right here is to generate an API user and an API key. That will be the next thing that we really need to do right now. And to do that, let's click on next step right here. And that just basically we're going to use this page to do that. And it seems like I'm no longer actually logged in. Let me just try to log in again. I don't know why it's a kind of a times out like that. Okay, the login is actually back again. And then let's go back to not really here but the documentation page, and then let's go to API user and API key, which is right here. Okay, so what we need to do first of all is to create an API user. To create an API user, it's really going to be very simple. We need to follow these steps down here, which means that we'll provide there's going to be a post request. We'll need to just enter our base URL, then /API user to be able to request for that. And then it's going to basically need a UUID reference ID in the request header and that of the subscription key. Okay, so after that, it's also going to really need the reference ID, and we're going to actually see how this is actually going to be done. And if we do that and it works just fine, so this is just the snippet of how we should actually structure this. If it works just fine, we're going to get 201 right here. That will be the success code, the code that we basically are going to get for the success. And after that, we can get into creating the API key. So let's focus on creating the API user first of all. So to do that, we need to go back to our coding environment. And what I'm going to do first of all, let me create a folder for this, which basically, let's call this Momo, just like that. And I want to open up that Momo within my Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to just select open with code, and it's going to actually open up. And what I want to do is to create the first file, which I'm going to just say create underscore API underscore user dot php. I want to open that up, and I want to throw in my PHP tag. Let's maximize this. So let me throw in my PHP tag right here, and we can close that out. Alright, so to connect to the API using Koi right now, we're going to basically need quite a few things in here, and I'm going to do some configuration right now, which I'm going to just paste these particular configurations that we have in here. And it seems like the PHP code is actually correct, so don't make sure your own is actually like this. And also do this to this. All right, so this is just basically how it is looking right now. However, we're going to need to bring in the headers right here, and to bring in the headers we need to go to our documentation again, and we're going to need this this particular line, which is the X reference ID. So what I want to do right now is that I want to copy this and then go back to that particular place. I want to put that this is going to be as an array, right? So I'm going to put it right here. So I'm going to put that in quote, and then I'm going to go ahead and then paste that, which is X dash reference dash ID, and we're basically going to set it to a value that we haven't actually provided yet, but we're going to just do that in the Jiffy. In fact, let's do that and then get that out of the way. So I want to generate something like, let's generate something like a UUID. So let me just do something like UUID generator. We can actually generate this for ourselves if we want to, but let's just try to speed this up by just trying to use the online generator. Okay, so while that is actually trying to open, the next thing that we need right here is actually going to be this particular key. So I'm going to copy this, and if I go back to my development environment, and we need to, let's introduce a comma right here, and then paste that down here. And of course, we're going to need to bring in the key into this particular place, which most of the time is actually going to be the secondary key or the primary key, but depending on the one you choose to use. Okay, they are all actually going to work. So let me go to the new page I just opened up, and then I want to click on this first link in here, and let's generate some code right here. We can actually copy this one that we have in here, but let's try to generate a new one. Let's say it's gonna just generate like 4 different stuff for us. I'm gonna just click on generate. So it has generated that. So I'm gonna just copy this, the first one right here. You can copy any of these, and then if we go back in here, I want to go ahead and then paste that right here. Okay, so that's actually gonna be our reference ID right there. Now for us to generate this OCP right here, this particular subscription key, that has to actually come in as this either the primary or the secondary ID, okay, which is present within our, where is, I think we're already logged in, right? Let me just try to log in back to our MTN MOMO. So I'm gonna click on sign in. All right, so I'm logged in back, and we can go to, let's go to our profile. So let's go to our profile right here, and then under our profile, it's gonna basically display that code that we need. So if we scroll down a little bit, what I want to do is to just go ahead and copy either the primary or the secondary key right here. So let me just copy the secondary. I'm gonna just have this copied, and then if we go back to the development environment, I want to go ahead and then stick that right here. And that's it for that particular line, guys. And I'm going to introduce a comma right here. And the last thing that we basically need is actually going to be the content type. So I'm going to just basically send this to content dash type, and I want to go ahead and set that to application JSON. So this is going to be application forward slash JSON, like that. And that's it for that particular line, guys. All right, so, and you should remember to use your own secondary key right here. Make sure that you don't actually use mine. And I think the next thing we need to do is to provide our what is it called, is to provide our endpoint right here, which I'm going to just do it within this particular place. And to do that, you just have to go to https:// and you need to go to sandbox. So this is going to be sandbox.momo developer.mtn.com, and you want to go ahead and then specify the version, which in our own case this is going to be version 1. So I'm going to just do v1_0 right there, and I'm going to just do / API user. So this is going to be API user, and let's make sure we type API user correctly. So this is going to be API user, like that, and I believe that that is actually correct. So this alone should be able to kind of allow us to be able to create a customer within this particular Momo API. And all right, so now that we have basically have all of these things in this particular page, it's a common practice anyway that these 2 things that we have in here right now, we could need, if there is any information rather that we need a couple more times at a later time from this page, it's a common practice to actually keep that in somewhere like a configuration file. So for that reason, this is the secondary key, and I want to just kind of cut this away from this particular page, and I'm going to just concatenate onto it on the next page. So what I'm going to just do right now is to just create a variable that I'm going to just call secondary underscore key, like that. And what that means is that we need to create a file that we're going to kind of import that from that file into that. So some people may call this something like config or configuration file. So let's call that config.php, and I want to throw in my PHP tag right here, and let's create that variable. Sorry about this. So it was actually called a secondary key, and let's go ahead and then put that in strings, and we can go ahead and terminate this line. However, for us to have access to this within our page right here, we need to link to that. And to do that, let's use include_once in PHP to be able to link to that file. Okay, so we need to get into this particular file called config.php, and with that, we've linked to that particular file. All right, so the next thing we need right here is going to be, because if we take a look at in here, and we'll take a look at this example right here, we've actually gone through all of the things that we need in there, but we're going to need something like a callback. Okay, this right here, we're going to need something of this nature. within our development environment. And what I want to do, or how I want to create that, is to just basically put that inside of our configuration file, which we already got right here. So to do that, I'm just going to create a variable that I'm going to just call data, and we can go ahead and set that data to an array. So this is going to be an array. Let's terminate this line. But then within this particular array, we're going to need something like a callback. It could just basically be called a host, maybe not be a URL, but we're just basically going to need it. Otherwise, we're going to get an error. Okay, so I'm going to just basically provide a URL right here that it's actually not actually in existence, but I'm going to just put that right there. And if you're actually on a live mode, you should be able to provide a live URL that actually works. Okay, because this is actually intended to be a real working URL. So this is going to be localhost, and I'm going to just say /momo, and I'm going to just say / something like callback.php. All right, so that is just what we're having there, and I'm going to just copy this variable in here. Let's save these changes here in here, and we're going to need to pass that particular variable to this particular line right here. Okay, and then we're passing this function called a JSON underscore encode to actually encode that whatever that is actually coming back for us from that of the MTN MOMO. All right, so we can save the changes and then try to test this within our browser right here, which I don't think we're going to basically get any outputs. And the reason for that is because MTN normally finds it so difficult to actually pass something like JSON object back to the users. Okay, so what they normally show up is they normally show something in the HTTP header, something like the code that a kind of a designate whether you had success trying to access that particular host or not. Okay, so we're going to just go to Momo, and we're going to go to / I think we'll call that create underscore user. Was it what we'll call it? I want to check that right here. So let's check. So we'll call that API user. So that was API underscore user, and we can just do .php right here, and then let's open that up. And of course, I think we need to, first of all, let's try to echo out this, and I want to do that maybe just a kind of var dump that. And I don't, even though I'm trying to var dump that, I don't think it's actually going to work, but let's just try to do that right now. I'm going to just copy this variable. Once it executes, I want to dump this to the screen, save these changes, and then if I go back to the URL and then refresh, okay, we have duplicated the reference ID, creation of a resource field, and let's find out why that is actually doing that. All right, so I've seen the reason why this error is actually displayed. I see that first time that we refreshed, that particular ID was actually used. Okay, so I've actually changed it to something else right now. So, but let me take it back to what we formerly had. So this is what we formerly had, and what happens is that this actually needs to always be unique every time you try to create a new user. Okay, every time it goes through, if you try to create the same new user again, it's going to tell you that that particular user already exists. Okay, so this one really existed within our system because we refreshed it at the first time before refreshing again. Okay, so what happens is that if you encounter this type of error, all you need is to generate another reference key right there. Okay, so if we go back to this page where we did the generation before now, so right here, let's try to generate another one. I'm going to generate just two right now, and then click on there. You see that generates, and if I take this right now, I'm going to just take the first one and then go back to my development environment. And I want to change this to the new one that I just created right now. Remember, that becomes the new user right now. However, before I go ahead and then do the refreshing of the web page right now, we want to make sure that we check for this particular, we want to check for the HTTP code, okay, that of the 201 HTTP code, because if you go to this particular place, if everything goes just fine, we're going to get this response. Okay, we're going to get 201 in the status code. So we want to check for that and then be sure that we kind of grab onto that. Okay, so I'm going to take this var dump away, and then down here, what I want to do is I want to just use if statement to check for that. Okay, so I'm going to just say if, first of all, I want to combine that with checking for error in case we have any errors in our code right here. So I'm going to just say if curl underscore error no. What do we want to do? If we have any errors right there, we want to just first of all pass in our ch, which is our query handler right there, which you can actually get up here, okay, right here. So that's just what I just did. So if we check in that particular place and we have any errors, we want to just go ahead and then maybe echo out the error right here by just using echo, and we can just say curl, return some errors, and you can go ahead and then pass the error onto the that particular message right here. So I'm going to just concatenate onto the error that it possibly may bring, which is going to be curl underscore error, and we can go ahead, terminate that, but then we're going to need the ch handler right here. So that line is actually going to be able to print out the error right there for us. But else, if we have success, and what do we basically want to do? Okay, we can go ahead and do a couple of things in here. Let's say, for instance, we basically want to like get the status code. Okay, what is in the HTTP header? So to get the HTTP code, or the code that is within the HTTP, we can actually do that. I'm going to put that in a variable, which I'm going to just call HTTP underscore code, and I'm going to go ahead and then use this coil underscore get info, and then within that particular place, we're basically going to need two parameters right here. And the first parameter that we're going to need is actually going to be our ch, which is our coil handler. This is going to be ch this way, and after that we're going to need the constant, which is actually called a corrupt. So let's make sure we spell that correctly. That's actually going to be core info, not corrupt. So this is going to be core info. So it's going to be core info underscore http underscore code. Okay, so that line alone is actually going to bring us the status code, or the http code. Okay, so let's make sure we spell this right. This is going to be http code, and if we have that right there, the next thing we could possibly do is to go ahead, let's just echo out the output. Okay, so down here we can just do something like, let's say we're going to echo out the response or the request right here. So I'm going to just say request, and then after that, the next thing I want to do is that we want to check for, all right, so after echoing out the request right here, we want to take that further, and what we want to do is to check if the request was actually successful or not, the HTTP status code of 201, if it was actually found. And to do that, let's put that in an if statement. So I'm going to just say if, and within this particular if statement right now, I want to just check, I want to just say HTTP, which is the variable that we'll have up here. Okay, so I want to just say if that particular variable contains a string that is actually equal to this particular number right now, which is 201, and if it is actually equal to that, we want to go ahead and then let's say we echo that the API call was actually successful. So to do that, we say API call was successful, and let's say that the response code is, and we can go ahead and then put the code right here, which we can just concatenate onto the variable that contains the status code, which is HTTP code right there, and terminate that line. And that is just that, guys. So let's just do an else part right here. So in case we have any errors, I want to go ahead and then print out the error right here. So I'm going to just say echo, and I'm going to just say API call was not successful. Okay, or we can just basically say API call failed, and we can just say with the HTTP underscore code, or let's just simply say with the code, and whatever code that could be, we can just go ahead and then concatenate onto that right here. So which I'm going to just use HTTP code right there to output that, and I'm going to save the changes right here. So what I want to do right now is if I go to this environment, I want to refresh, and let's see what is going to happen. And you see that that was actually created successfully, and we'll have a status of 201. Okay, right there. So what this means is that this particular key right now becomes our API user. Okay, because if we refresh that right now, you're going to see that he's going to tell you that that already exists. You see, it will tell you that this is duplicated and that the ID creation failed, and then that resource is already a kind of exist. Okay, so that is just what that is actually going to tell you. So I already copied this particular thing into the clipboard. So what I want to do right now is if I get into this place, my config, and what I want to do within this place is to just create a new variable and just say API user, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that code right here. Okay, so that becomes my API user. All right, so the next thing we want to do, or basically need to do, is to just go ahead and then create API key. So now that we have created API user, the next thing is to create an API key, which we can also do. What I want to do is to just copy everything that we have on this page and then create a new file, and let's basically call that API underscore key. Okay, and that's just going to be .php. So let's open that up, and I'm going to paste everything that I just copied into this particular page and then try to modify it right now. All right, so to create an API key, we're going to need a couple of things. The first thing we're going to need is that this particular URL is actually going to change. Okay, so if we check our development, I mean our resources right here, you're going to see that if we scroll to the section where we are creating our API key, you notice that we're basically going to need our base URL. We're going to just say something like API user, and after saying API user, of course the API user is going to be the ID that I just copied down to this page right now, which is going to be just basically this. Okay, so you have to remember that we need to make sure that we input that right there. Okay, so that's actually going to be passed onto the URL. That's why it says API user right here. And after that, we can now kind of proceed with the rest of the things that we're going to need, such as the subscription key, which is in our case is going to just be the secondary key. And after this, if it goes successful, we're still going to get a 201 code, meaning that that has been actually created. Okay, so without wasting more time, let's just try to see how is it that we can actually convert all of these things that we just talked about right now to be able to give us what we really want. Okay, so to do that is really very simple. I'm going to just go back to our development environment and then go to my API key right here and then try to modify what we have in here. Okay, so this is the base URL. Beginning from here up to this particular place is the base URL. We need to get into that. But after that, we're going to basically just say API user. And after that, we're going to just say /. And this will be the time for us to really bring in what is it called, the API user itself, which in our own case, I just basically want us to just put that. It's already in the variable right here. So let's find the way to concatenate these onto this right here. Okay, so this is going to be, if we paste this right here this way, I don't know whether that's actually going to give any errors, but let me just try to let's just leave it right there. Okay, so that's just what that is going to be. So the next parameter or the last thing that we're going to need right now is going to just be API key. Okay, just like the documentation account of a specifies. Okay, so this is just a variable is going to come in dynamically. If you want to put that manually there, you can come here, copy this, and then get it into that particular place. Okay, so that's just it for that particular line. And then the next one is that this particular line should actually stay. I think we need that. And after that, we are basically not going to need to input any data into this particular place. Okay, so that with that, it means that we're going to just basically render this to be equal to empty strings. So this is going to be empty strings like this. And after that, we can, our return transfer is actually okay. Then after that, we need to, so let's work on our HTTP head. I think that should be the next thing that we need in here. Every other thing should actually stay. However, on our headers right here, what we're basically going to need is only this key that we have in here. Okay, this subscription key. So we're not going to need this first one right here, which is basically just an ID. So we're going to just use the secondary key in here, and we are also going to need this particular line in here. So we're going to leave it like that. However, when we get down here, we need to modify how we are printing the message. So if we have any error right here, we're going to just go ahead and print the error. Okay, but if we have no errors, we can go ahead and then grab onto the HTTP code and then put it in a variable, echo out whatever that is actually there. And we went further to check, since it's also going to show us 201 status code. We grabbed onto the status code and then we're checking it right here. So however, the API call was actually successful within this particular place. If it is successful, what we need to do is to just tell the user that the call was actually successful. But then the message is actually going to change. We're not going to just say the response code is okay. Even if we say the response code is actually this, that's also fine. What I think what I'm going to just do is just say something like the API user. I'm going to just say the API user has been created. Okay, and that is just what that means. So the API user has actually been created. Oh, sorry, not really API user, but API key. We're just working on API key right here. So the API key has been created. All right, so that's just how that is right now. The API key has been created, and we'll save these changes, and then let's just give that a shot within our system right here. So I'm just going to change this particular place right here from create API user to, let's call this API underscore key, and I believe that that's just the name we call it. So if we, let's just wait for that, and that has been created, guys. So if you take a look at here, it returned an object for us telling us that that the API call was actually successful and the API key has been created. 201 is the code, and it has actually given us this particular key right here, which is the API key. Okay, and we'll need to copy that down. I'm going to copy that, and then if we go back to, let's go to our configuration file, and within this place I will just want to, let's call that API key, and let's go ahead and paste that right here. So I'm going to just go ahead and paste that here and then terminate this particular line. So this is now our API key, guys, that we can actually use to a kind of create a token. Okay, so we can use between this API user and that of the API key to create a token. And that brings us to the next level. So basically what we're going to need to do is to go ahead and then create our token. That will be the next thing that we want to do. All right, so to create an access token, that should be the next thing. Let's create a page for it, guys. So I'm going to just click in here and let's just say access underscore token.php. That will be the next thing that I want to create right now. All right, so and to create that, we can basically copy the previous page that we are just coming from right here. So I'm going to just highlight everything in this page and then go ahead and paste that within this particular page. Okay, so if we scroll to the top, we need to change a couple of things in here, but first of all, let's try to see the page that it kind of helps us create that. Okay, I want to look for the documentation that is going to really help us to be able to create that. So to get that, if we go to this sandbox again, and there's a place where we'll have create access token right here. I want to click on that. All right, so this is the page that is basically going to help us create an access token. We just basically need to go to the following URL right here, and if we get in there, we're going to need a couple parameters. I just want to copy this right now and then change that. So this is going to change from what it is right now to the new URL or the new endpoint. And if we have that in place, the next thing that we need right now is that we of course we're going to need this, and we're also going to need the post fields right there, and also the custom, and we're going to also set the transfer to true right here. But within this, we are going to need something like an authorization. Okay, so that's just within this particular place right now. We're going to need something like an authorization. The subscription key is okay, and then that of the content is okay, but we're going to need something like an authorization key. And to bring that in, let's just type authorization right here. This is going to be authorization, and we're going to just do colon right there, and we're going to need to pass in the word basic. And I'm not just trying to make things up myself right here. As a matter of fact, all the things that I'm actually using right now, I'm actually kind of getting it from here. Because if you take a look at this header right here, and if you scroll, we're going to see that the format, they say that the basic authentication header containing API user ID and then API key should be sent in as a base 64 encoded format. Okay, that's just basically what I'm trying to do. If you click right here right now, this is going to expose quite a few things to us right here. Basically that does not actually say much, but that doesn't really say much about it, but this is just the format, guys. So we just basically need to add the word basic right here, and if we have basic in that place, the next thing that we need is to make sure that we kind of just like they said in here right now, that we are basically going to need the API user and then the API key. If you take a look at it here, you are going to see that we need the API user ID and that of the API key, and this should be in base 64 encoded. So to do that right now, or to represent that within our code right here, we basically can put that as a string in here, but since we already have the API user and then the API key in a variable, all we need to do first of all, we need to just concatenate onto this. So I'm going to concatenate onto that function that is actually called a base 64 encode. So this is going to be base 64 encode. Okay, and then within this particular place, all we need to do right now is to make sure that we'll bring in the variables. Okay, so if I click here, the first one is actually the API user. So I'm going to copy this, go back in here, and then paste that within this particular place, and I'm going to concatenate again, and this time around I'm going to basically concatenate onto a colon. So this is going to be a colon right here, and then I'm going to concatenate again, and I need to just bring in that of the API key, which is right here. So I'm going to copy this and then go back and paste that right here. Okay, so with this line, we've basically converted the authorization key. We've just brought them in using a base 64 decode. I think that was actually called encode, not decode. So I'm going to just change this to, this is going to be encode. We need to put that in an encoded format, guys. So I think that's just basically what the specified in here. So that should be encoded, not decoded. All right. So that is just what we're having there right now. So that line alone should be able to kind of help us produce something like an authorization in this development. So I'm going to just put a comma right here. And for the secondary key, that's actually correct. And then the content type is really correct. So the next thing we need to do is to move down right here. If there is any other thing that we need to change right here, let's just do that right now. All right, so within this page right now, I think this part should actually stay, and this part should it kind of also stay. But right here, if you take a look at this, we have 201 to be the status code right here, but they are telling us that the response code for this particular endpoint is actually 200. 200 is actually okay. When you get 200, that means that everything works just fine. So for that reason, this is even without wasting much of our time, we can even take away these two lines that we have in here. We just basically are going to just basically have these few lines. And the reason that I want us to have this is because the endpoint, it kind of allows us to print out something to the URL. I mean, to the page for us. Okay, so if we save and then try to check this within our browser right now, we should be able to have something printed to the screen for us. Okay, through this particular thing that we have in here. Okay, we can either do something like a var dump or whatever we want to do to be able to see whatever result that comes back for us to in the browser. Okay, so what I'm basically going to do right now is let's just save the changes right here, and I want to go ahead and then access this particular endpoint. So if we go to our web browser right now and let's try to change this particular URL, and this was actually called the access underscore token.php, and I want to open that up, guys. Okay, so it seems like I can't really actually find anything in here, but maybe there are some other things that we basically need to do, and that's just basically going to be well, basically I know, let me just try to do something like, let's do var dump. Maybe var dump will be able to bring out that to the screen for us. I'm going to just do request right here. So that's going to be request, and then if I save and I refresh this page, and then we'll have this right there. Okay, but however, we're not getting any error from this particular place, and since we're not getting any errors, it means that the part that is actually running is this particular part. So how then do we, I was actually thinking that this page will be able to kind of print a kind of return something like a JSON object for us, but it seems like it's not actually doing that. Let me save the code right here and see what is going to happen. Let's refresh, and it seems like we still do not have anything right there. Let me return that to encode. And what I'm going to do right now is that I want to just basically let me comment out this line and comment out this line also. And what I want to do right now is that I want to use if statement again. And within this particular place, I'm going to just say if the HTTP, this is going to be if the HTTP code right there is actually equal to 200, what do you want to do? Let's just kind of say something like we echo, let's say API call was successful and the code is, and let's concatenate onto the HTTP code right here. Okay, so else you can just go ahead and then echo that the API call failed, and we can concatenate let's say the code is, and we can go ahead and then concatenate onto the HTTP code again, so that it will print out the error code for us. Okay, so about this, we need to take those away, save that, and if we try this again, and then we have the API call failed, and then the code is actually 400. Okay, we'll have 400 right here, and we'll need to check what 400 actually kind of represents. So if we take a look at through this page, let us look for 400. So what we have in here, we have 401 and we have 500, but we do not have 400 on this particular page. Why is that? So how do we find out where this error is actually coming from? All right, guys, so I've gone through the code, and if you take a look at this message right here where it says where is that again? Right here, it says 400 right here. This 400, I've just read about it, and it happens to be that it's actually a bad request. Okay, we made a bad request, And I really cannot figure out what to do, but my mind is just telling me something that if we create a space right here, okay, just immediately after this, we create a space right here, because every other thing that we have in here, they kind of have a space, okay, because this is getting combined together with everything in here. So if we create a space between this place right now and then save the changes, I believe that that is actually going to solve the problem. Even though it's a very simple thing, but those small things can actually wreck your boat sometimes. So let's try that by refreshing and then see what is going to happen. All right, so we now have a API call was actually successful, and the code is actually 200. However, I still believe that there is a way to really like output the code. I still want to comment this particular line right here, guys, because I want to see the access token. Okay, so if I save this and I refresh this page again, I want to see the access token somehow, guys. Congratulations, guys. So this is what I was actually looking for, okay? So if you take a look at that, you see that we have access token being generated for us, and this is the access token beginning from that place up to this place is the access token, and the access type the token type rather is actually set to access token, and it expires in an hour time. Okay, so we can basically go ahead and then try to grab onto this access token. And if we get that right now, that is actually what we can use to request for a payment. Okay, so let's just first of all try to grab onto this from this particular page. And to do it is really very simple. If you want to do that, you can basically do that right here. I'm going to at first I want to convert this. This is going to be I want to copy and then paste this right here, and then change this to, let's call that response. And what I basically need right here is going to be request. I'm going to do a request, and then we can go to the access token, which we just saw on the URL. I mean on the browser right now. So I'm going to copy that and then put that right here. Okay, so we have that right now. And if we comment this out and then we refresh our web page, let's make sure save the changes. We will no longer actually see the access token anymore. It says attempt to read property access token on string. There is an error right there somehow. What I want to do, let me just try to kind of pass this through a JSON object. Okay, so this result where we have result right here, the first thing I want to do, I just want to take this away first of all. Or if we pass, let's just pass JSON underscore the code, and this can be this way. Let's save that, and if I refresh this page, I should not have that error anymore, and I still have that. So I think what we need to do is to take this. First of all, I'm going to take this away. I think we basically just need the request right here. This is going to be just request to decode that. But then if we want to like grab onto, if we save this way, first of all, I want to see that on the URL on the browser. I want to refresh to be sure that that error is gone. But then if I want to print out that access token, I'm going to just create a variable and just say access underscore token, and I'm going to just go ahead and then paste what I copied earlier onto the clipboard, then terminate this line. And with this, if I just do something like echo behind this, I just make sure we echo this out. This is going to be echo, and let's just say something like your access token is, and we'll concatenate onto this. So I'm going to save the changes right here, and then if we refresh, and we still have that error right there. What's happening, man? Let's take this away, save the changes, go back and refresh. It says attempt to read property access token on string. What is a string right here? Let me just check that again. Give me some seconds. I think I've really seen the error. So I wasn't actually supposed to be using required anymore. I should be using response right here. So let's put that back. So this should not be a response, not really, because we've done the conversion right here. So we've saved everything into this response. So that's actually where the error is coming from. So if I refresh, I should be able to see my access token printed the way that it is right now on the screen. So we'll have our access token now. We have it in this place, and we can always use it anywhere we want right now. And what we basically want to do, we could just, however, just include this particular file onto the next page that we basically may be going to need. Okay, so let me just first of all take away all of these things that are on this particular page. I don't want to be echoing anything anymore on that particular page. Okay, so I want to just make sure that this page is a kind of empty right now, and everything just still remain intact. Maybe, however, I should have something like done something like comment it out in case you guys are actually gonna need it. So let me just comment that out instead of just deleting the code right there. Okay, so everything should still remain the same. However, the next thing we want to do is to find a way to request for payment. Okay, that should be the next thing we want to do on this stuff right now. All right, so to request for payment, we're gonna just come to this particular place and then click on a create payment. I believe that this is going to be the page that we're going to need to be able to request for payment. And if we get in there, we just basically need to go to this particular endpoint where we'll have to go to collection version, and uh, this we should be, it's not really to go to create payment. I think we are just going to the wrong URL. It should be to go to this request to pay. So I'm going to click on request to pay, and it's a post request that we should be able to make on this. So let's open that up, and all we need is to just make sure that we'll go to this URL. Once we get to this particular URL, these are the headers that we need. Okay, and after that, we're going to need a couple body parameters down here. But what I'm going to do right now is that I want to pause the video right here because this has taken quite a lot of time. I want to start editing this one. And then in the next one, we are going to just try to implement this particular page. However, you can actually do it yourself, guys. You don't have to wait for me to do this with you. I think I've shown you quite a lot of things. The only thing you need right now, since you have gotten your access token, is really very simple to make your payment right now. Okay, so you can do that by yourself, or if you want me to still do that, you can just drop a comment in the comment section. And that is just that for now, guys. Then I will see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.